The recent remarks made by President Donald Trump about Canadian oil have taken a sharp and contradictory turn. Previously, he said that Canadian imports were unnecessary in order to highlight American independence, but now he is calling for the construction of an oil pipeline that would directly connect Canadian oil fields with U.S. refineries. While Trump attempts to appear strong by disparaging a long-standing ally, he also acknowledged that the U.S. energy sector is heavily dependent on Canadian resources. These contradictory messages have sparked additional controversy in recent months. This change in rhetoric reveals an underlying reality. Trump has alternated between calling for the restoration of vital energy infrastructure, like the Keystone XL pipeline, and launching a scathing attack on Canada, most notably declaring that the U.S. doesn't need Canadian oil. He praised the Biden administration for scrapping the project in a recent media post and highlighted the strategy of his own administration. Trump highlighted his administration's commitment to energy independence and lowering reliance on foreign oil, saying that our nation is doing incredibly well. Today, I was just thinking that the company building the Keystone XL pipeline, which the inept Biden administration viciously abandoned, should return to America and have it built. I know they were mistreated by a slumbering Joe Biden, but the Trump administration is very different. They get approvals almost immediately, and if not, maybe Trump's remarks have rekindled debates regarding the project's viability. Proponents contend that repairing the pipeline would increase North American energy security and generate thousands of jobs, while opponents maintain that it poses serious environmental risks, such as the possibility of oil spills and higher carbon emissions. Logistical and regulatory obstacles still exist, as the original developer, TC Energy, has shifted its focus away from the project and dismantled important infrastructure. In a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron on February 24, 2025, President Donald Trump confirmed yesterday that the United States will proceed with imposing a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, effective March 3, 2025. Trump emphasized his commitment to the tariffs, noting that whatever they charge us, we charge them. In response to these tariffs, the Canadian government plans to implement a comprehensive counter-tariff plan to protect Canadian businesses, workers, and the broader economy. These countermeasures will go into effect immediately upon confirmation of the U.S. tariffs and will stay in place until the restrictions are removed. In order to find a positive solution to this trade dispute, Canada is dedicated to protecting its economic interests. Canada's anti-tariff policies, the Canadian government will levy reciprocal 25% tariffs on U.S. goods valued at 155 billion Canadian dollars, products coming into Canada. This strategy will be carried out in 2 stages to guarantee a prompt and well-thought-out reaction. The first phase, which will soon begin, will target about 30 billion in Canadian dollars, bringing in consumer goods, industrial materials, and agricultural products are among the main industries impacted. Beef tariffs will be applied to a range of fruits and vegetables, as well as pork and dairy products, in addition to processed foods, such as snacks, soft drinks, and breakfast cereals will be affected. Additionally, Canadian consumers will have to pay more for alcoholic drinks like bourbon. In the consumer goods industry, the countermeasures will include personal care items, washing machines, refrigerators, and dishwashers, in addition to Tennessee whiskey, beer, and wine imported from the U.S., cosmetics, different types of clothing, and footwear industrial raw materials like aluminium and steel. Polymers, products made of rubber, wood, and paper, will also be part of this initial stage. Following a period of public consultation that ends on March 25, 2025, the second phase of the counter-tariff plan will be put into action. This phase aims to target an additional 125 billion Canadian dollars in U.S. bringing in the imposition of tariffs on passenger vehicles will have a substantial effect on the automotive industry. Light trucks and auto parts such as electrical parts, tires, and batteries. Tariffs imposed on the U.S. will also limit the aerospace and defense industries, parts and maintenance services for aircraft, along with processed meats, Other agricultural products, such as corn, soybeans, wheat, and rice, will also be subject to tariffs. Additionally, Canada is thinking of using non-tariff measures to limit the export of vital minerals like cobalt, nickel, and lithium to the United States. In addition to tariffs, Canada is looking into other forms of retaliation to protect its financial interests. One important tactic is to prevent U.S. companies from taking part in Canadian federal and provincial government procurement projects. This action aims to ensure that Canadian companies profit from public spending while discouraging unfair trade practices by the U.S. government. Additionally, export controls on important resources, such as possible limitations on the supply of natural gas and oil to U.S. refineries, are being reviewed. As part of their efforts to support Canadian industries, provincial governments are also acting. The Ontario Liquor Board plans to take U.S.-made alcoholic beverages off store shelves. These actions are part of a larger plan to increase economic power while reducing needless harm to Canadian companies and consumers. Let's examine President Donald Trump's recent remarks regarding Canada that caused these problems. In recent months, his remarks about Canada have become startlingly combative. After dismissing Canadian imports as unnecessary, he has now intensified his rhetoric by repeatedly implying in a series of posts on Truth Social that Canada ought to become the 51st state in the Union. Trump said, "We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why there is no reason why we don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, we make our own cars, and we have more timber than we can ever use." It's harsh, but true that without these massive subsidies, Canada would cease to exist as a viable nation. Therefore, Canada should become our beloved 51st state with much lower taxes, far better military protection for its citizens, and no tariffs. In addition to making headlines around the world, these savage remarks also indicated a previously unheard-of readiness to employ severe economic sanctions against a long-time ally. President Trump's public remarks have vacillated between an almost haughty denial of Canada's significance and an appreciation of its vital role in American energy security. On the one hand, he has asserted that the United States is self-sufficient and that we don't need their products, but on the other, he has repeatedly underlined that if Canada joins the Union, there won't be any tariffs, and taxes will be significantly lower, with far superior military protection. His constant insistence that Canada should be incorporated into the Union despite being a vital supplier of natural gas, crude oil, and other commodities exposes this contradictory position. Trump's message implies that he sees the country as a territory that can be subjugated and dominated by American economic power, rather than as an equal trading partner. Could you please do us a favor? Let's pause for a moment. We would like to ask you a small favor if you have liked the video thus far. Thank you for watching, and let's get back to his statehood proposals. Pressing the like button expands our audience, and leaving comments with your ideas or feedback has an even greater impact. Trump has persisted in his aggressive tariff campaign, saying that Canada has been unquestionably bad to us on trade, but that now it will have to start paying up. He has also imposed a 25% tariff on the majority of Canadian goods, while keeping energy products at a lower 10% rate, a move he claims is required to safeguard American jobs and security. In a press briefing, Trump reiterated that the current trade imbalance is unacceptable and said that these tariffs are a form of economic force meant to force Canada to address issues he blames on its policies, such as illegal immigration and the flow of dangerous drugs like fentanyl. His administration, on the other hand, says that these tariffs are meant to improve national security and renegotiate trade deals on more favorable terms. Because Canada provides more than 25% of the United States' daily oil imports, the practical reality is that they reveal a serious vulnerability. Trump's claims of statehood are more than just empty rhetoric. They are part of a larger plan, too. use American expansionist rhetoric as a negotiating chip. Canadian energy imports into the US. For many years, the United States and Canada have maintained a historic and strategic bilateral energy relationship. Geographic proximity and a system of established pipelines have strengthened Canada's position as the US's main supplier of foreign crude oil imports. The majority of US refineries, many of which were built to process heavy sour crude, depend heavily on Canadian production to supply the feedstock they require. Recent data from the US Energy Information Administration, EIA, shows that the amount of crude oil imported by the US from Canada has increased to record levels, with over 4 million barrels delivered daily to US refineries. This substantial amount, which accounts for about 60% of all imported crude, highlights the two nations' mutual reliance. Despite increasing domestic production in the US, the steady and competitive supply of Canadian natural gas remains essential to many US markets, especially in areas where infrastructure is optimized for cross-border flows. This relationship is also exemplified by the natural gas trade, which involves large quantities of gas transported by pipeline across the border. The trade in crude oil between the United States and Canada is distinguished by high volumes as well as a particular emphasis on the kind of crude that American refineries need. The U.S. refining landscape now includes Canadian oil, which is primarily heavy and sour in nature. Midwest refineries and other regions are set up to process these grades, a design decision that stems from times in 2023 when heavy crude was more widely accessible. Despite the fact that Canadian crude is cheaper than lighter grades, imports of the oil reached a record volume of 4.42 million barrels per day, demonstrating the extent of the dependency. Canadian oil is not only a cost-effective option, but also a strategic necessity due to its unique characteristics, which also mean that only a small number of U.S. refineries can process it efficiently. In recent years, the U.S. has imported nearly 8.5 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day from Canada, a figure that highlights the sheer magnitude of cross-border trade. The integration of the North American natural gas market means that Canadian supplies, with their lower transportation costs and favorable pricing, continue to be a cornerstone of U.S. energy security. This natural gas is necessary for residential, heating, industrial use, and electricity generation throughout the U.S., especially during peak winter demand. The physical and economic integration of the two markets guarantees that Canadian natural gas will continue to be a dependable and affordable source of resources for us, even as domestic production rises, underscoring the two countries' ongoing interdependence. Even as domestic production rises, the physical and economic integration of the two markets guarantees that Canadian natural gas remains a dependable and affordable supplement to our resources, underscoring the two countries' ongoing interdependence. The integration of the North American natural gas market means that Canadian supplies, with their lower transportation costs and favorable pricing, continue to be a cornerstone of U.S. energy security. The United States and Canada have a long-standing relationship. Moving from fossil fuels to electricity and other energy commodities, even though the amount of electricity traded is less than that of gas and oil, it is still important for grid stability and in order to balance supply and demand in important U.S. markets like New England. Regional energy security provinces like Ontario and Quebec export electricity. New York, Michigan, and Ohio. These crossflows contribute to grid stability, especially when weather-related variations or unforeseen outages, in addition to electricity, pose a challenge to domestic generation. In addition, Canada supplies uranium and other vital minerals needed for the U.S. energy industry as well as other industrial uses. This more comprehensive energy portfolio guarantees that the two countries' relationship extends beyond conventional fuels to include the resources required for nuclear power generation and emerging technologies for energy. The Keystone XL Pipeline. For more than 10 years, the Keystone XL pipeline has dominated environmental, political, and economic discussions in North America. Although it had the potential to improve energy infrastructure, the pipeline has encountered strong opposition because of environmental concerns and political changes. The project, first proposed in 2008 by TC Energy, formerly TransCanada, sought to transport oil from Canada's Alberta province to refineries in the United States. The vast Keystone pipeline system, which has been in operation since 2010, transports crude oil from Alberta's Western Canadian sedimentary basin to a number of U.S. locations, such as refineries in Texas and Illinois, as well as oil tank farms and distribution hubs in Oklahoma. The main goal of the proposed Keystone XL, or KXL, a 1,200-mile or 1,900-kilometer extension to this system, was to offer a more direct and effective route, boosting the ability to transport an extra 830,000 barrels of crude oil per day from Hardisty, Alberta, to Steel City, Nebraska. This extension would have made it easier for oil to reach refineries along the Gulf Coast. Social and environmental ramifications. The XL project has been at the epicenter of social and environmental disputes. The process of extracting oil from Alberta's tar sands, which is known to emit more greenhouse gases than traditional oil drilling, is one of the main causes for concern. Research has shown that the emissions linked to tar sands oil are roughly 81% higher than those of regular crude oil, which raises serious concerns about climate change. Additionally, the pipeline's proposed route passed through environmentally sensitive areas, including Nebraska's Sand Hills region and the Ogallala Aquifer, one of North America's largest freshwater sources that provides millions of people with irrigation and drinking water. A potential oil spill in this area could have disastrous effects on local ecosystems and water quality. Native American groups also strongly opposed the pipeline. In addition to upsetting holy sites and customs, the construction threatened to encroach on ancestral lands. This opposition draws attention to more general concerns about Indigenous rights, as well as the historical exclusion of Native American tribes and infrastructure initiatives. Changes in politics and regulations. The 2015 journey of the KXL pipeline through the political landscape of the United States has been turbulent. Citing environmental concerns in light of the country's commitment to addressing climate change, President Barack Obama rejected the project. This decision was overturned in 2017 when President Donald Trump signed executive orders to move forward with the pipeline, highlighting job creation and energy independence.